Welcome to Round Glass Living. I'm Vimalasara, joining you live from the unceded territory, Seashell Nation, Kanata, Canada. Thank you so much for joining me for this conversation and a deep look at how we limit our potential. I believe it's better to believe in possibilities than hope. Why? Because hope places us in the victim role. With hope, we're often waiting to be saved, somebody to help us. I know that. I was one of these people who was waiting to be rescued. With possibilities, we can begin to see a way out, and we instinctively act. We come into the world with a breath of inspiration, and we leave the world with a breath of expiration. And in between these bookends, we get to live our potential. What if you accepted right now that you are living your potential? Yeah, what if? I say this because sometimes we can become obsessed with becoming a better person, wanting to do more, not satisfied with our lot, if only we were doing this or that. And we neglect the fact that right now we are actually living our potential. The meaning of potential is to become or develop into something in the future. The truth is, the future never arrives and nothing ever happens in the past. So we must become content with now. All right, well, let's begin with a brief grounding meditation to settle into this experience collectively and hopefully perhaps regulate the central nervous system. So just inviting you to do what you need to do to relax and be present with me for the next few minutes. I'm going to stretch a minute. If you need to turn something off on the cooker, then do it. This is the time to do it. If you need to stretch, then stretch. If you need to attend to something in your household, then please do it. Yeah, I like to stretch. If you need to lay down or sit, then please do. This is your time for you. You may even want to stand. Okay. So let's really see if we can begin to tune in to our potential. So I'm closing my eyes so that I can begin to tune into my inner potential and hopefully transmit that inner potential and radiate it out to each and every one of you who is listening to me right now. So settling into the body. And inviting you to listen to the body. Really see if you can appreciate this body, this amazing body or this amazing body that has carried you this far with all its beautiful imperfections. There is no such thing as a perfect body, and yet in these imperfect bodies we are capable of multitudes of things. And of course, the ancestor that comes to me right now is Stephen Hawking, and just in his body, the potential and what he offered to the world. So really, let's not limit ourselves. Stephen Hawking did not limit himself. Just thanking that ancestor for reminding me. Yeah. So appreciate this body. And if you're not sure who Stephen Hawking was, he was an amazing scientist. You can look him up at another time. I just want you to connect to your body. And appreciate this body. This body that has most probably done amazing things, like perhaps giving birth to a child, or being part of creating this new being that came into the world. And even if you haven't birthed a child or been part of creating beings coming into the world, you may have been an aunt or an uncle or a parent. And then this amazing body gets up in the morning and goes to work. Yeah. And lives out its potential. When I work with young children and I ask them, what do you think is the most important job in the world? And often they say, the trash collector. It's an amazing job. Yeah, just people living out the potential of making sure that we are not overrun by rats or bears or foxes or cougars. Yeah. And we may write this off and think, well, what kind of job is that? Well, it's a most important job. If the people who collected the trash went on strike, where would we be? So really see if you can tap into something that you appreciate about yourself. Perhaps tapping into your kindness, breathing in and out through the heart, opening up the heart and tapping into your kindness. Or tapping into your generosity. This body of yours is full of so much potential. And being here with me right now is an opportunity to tap in to your potential, to open up the space, to create the pause, the space, so that we can step into our potential, whatever that may look like. And it looks different for each and every individual. Let's see if you can allow the body to do the breathing rather than you doing the breathing. So you can really begin to experience the potential of this body, because we think there is a breather, but actually there is no breather. The body breathes itself. So really see if you can find that place where you're not controlling the breathing and the body is just doing its breathing. In, out, in, out. And so we're going to gently bring this short practice to a close by taking in a deep breath and expanding the breathing throughout the whole body. Let's take one more breath together, and you can go as deep as you like or as shallow as you like, and have the sense of breathing the breath out through the body. And as we connect back to each other, we just want to remind you of our ancestors. Yeah. It's because of their potential that we are here now. Yeah. And just know that the potential that you step into, many people will benefit from that when we have become the future ancestor. But let's take a look at some of the ways that we can limit our potential. I'm smiling. Speech. This is something that I've had to work with. I grew up on the aphorism, sarcasm was the highest form of wit and the lowest form of ignorance. And I had to really learn to do an inventory on my speech because it was limiting my potential. So it's an invitation to do an inventory and become aware of how you speak to yourself, let alone how we speak to others. And one of the ways you can do this inventory, whenever you find yourself speaking to yourself, ask, is it helpful? Is it truthful? Is it necessary? Is it kind? And if you answer no to any one of these, then no, your speech is limiting your potential. Become aware of how harsh you are with yourself and see if you can transform your harsh words into kindly and gracious communication. Become aware of how your speech is often or can be full of falsehoods and see if you can transform your self-talk into truthful communication with yourself. become aware of useless chatter that goes on and on and on in our minds, that turns over and over and over and over again. Things that you obsess about, things that you lie down with, you go to sleep with, you wake up with it. The things you can't do, you obsess about the things you can't do, and the things that you wish you were doing, the things that you obsess about. We can obsess about being a failure, not being good enough, we should have done better. And the story goes on and on and on. Yeah. And we have to learn to transform this speech into helpful communication. And the first way we begin to do this is stop believing that chatter in your head. Stop believing it. Stop letting that chatter run your life. I also say become aware of how you slander yourself. Just imagine a friend telling you that someone had been gossiping about you and slandering you with all the things that you've said to yourself. You would be livid. You'd be upset. You'd be enraged. And you wouldn't want to speak to that person again. That person would be evil. And yet, we limit our potential by not only slandering ourselves, but by believing the slander. And yet, if we heard it from somebody else, we wouldn't believe it. We'd say it's lies. So, we need to transform this slander into harmonious speech towards ourselves. So that's enough on speech. We could speak for 24 hours, 48 hours, a whole lifetime about speech, because speech is definitely one of the ways that we can limit our potential. I can remember waking up one morning and thinking, oh my God, my biggest addiction is my stinking thinking. It was limiting me. Okay, let's move on, because we have two other ways that we can limit our potential. There are so many ways, but if I give you so many ways, you'll be overwhelmed with it. So we're just going to be with 3 today. So the second way is the body. Let's talk about the body and how the relationship with our body can limit our potential. Many of us can harm the body with intoxicants like drugs, alcohol, and of course that stinking thinking that I spoke about. Many of us can neglect the body and don't treat it as a temple. The body is the only thing we can hold on to, and even that is temporary. And so, let's treat it well. How can we become more content with the body and explore the wisdom of its stillness and simplicity? In this space of stillness, simplicity, our potential will become so obviously abundant. We have to slow down. We have to connect to the pause for us to allow this potential to emerge. We can't make the potential. We just have to create the conditions for the potential to emerge. So we need to become aware of how we harm the body. And only you know how you are doing harm to it. So get transparent with yourself. And without judgment, just become compassionately transparent with yourself and acknowledge all the things you do that harm the body and in turn limit your potential. Treat the body with deeds of loving kindness. You can ask yourself, what deeds of loving kindness can you begin doing towards your body? Okay, I said there were 3 ways that we can limit ourselves. So what's left? What haven't I mentioned yet? The biggie, yes, the mind. It all goes down in the mind, yes. Of course, the mind limits our potential, that the body, speech and mind are all interconnected. But the mind, when we hold on to animosity, resentment, and grudges. There's no room for anything else. How can it be? We have to learn to transform our feelings of possible anger or hatred into compassion. And this is a practice, and one we must do daily if we really want to begin to realize our potential. Similarly, greed and covetousness seizes the tranquility of the mind, and it's not possible to tap into that self energy, our inner potential, if we are assailed by these poisons. And the most damaging poison of the mind is false views, our views that keep us imprisoned in the mind. Our views stop us from seeing beyond the mind. And this is a problem because potential does not live in the mind. It is beyond the mind. It is a place that is unknown, a place of surrendering to that place of I don't know that I don't know. Staying a prisoner of the mind deludes us because we think what is happening in the mind is real. Let me share a teaching of the Buddha from the Honeyball Sutta, and I paraphrased it. It goes something like this. What one feels, one begins to label in the mind, and perception arises. And what one perceives, one thinks, and what one thinks about, one begins to turn it over and over until we become a victim of our own pattern of thinking. And hence, all potential is limited. So if you want to expand, tap into your inner potential, pay attention to your body, speech, and mind. So let's just take a pause because I've said a lot. Just really see if you can hear what it is that you are saying to yourselves right now. Okay, we have time for maybe one or two questions. So let's see what questions you've got for me. Let me just scroll through and see which one might be relevant. Let's go with this one. It has been years since I looked at myself in the mirror, and I want to get the courage to love myself, maybe for the first time. Any advice? Go and look in the mirror. In fact, what I would say is, great, go on to Zoom and look at yourself on Zoom. I mean, in a way, it's a practice of learning to love ourselves. And yeah, as you realize, when we don't love ourselves, it does limit our potential. So what I would say to you is begin to get curious. Why don't you love yourself? When did you stop loving yourself? When did you stop being enchanted by your own story? Because that's where it comes from. We're learning, not loving ourselves. We learn not to love ourselves. Something happened. And so in a way, I would really encourage you to do that therapeutic work. And, you might think, oh, I don't have the money. There's something called co-counseling, which is very peer-to-peer. And you don't need money for that if you really think, oh, I don't have the money. Or you could get yourself some compassionate inquiry therapy or IFS therapy and look at that part that doesn't love itself. And what I want to say to you is, there is a part that does love you because you're still here. And actually give energy to that part that does love yourself. And just know that voice, that part of you that comes crashing in, I don't love myself, I can't look in the mirror. Perhaps ask it to relax, to step aside, so you can really begin to appreciate yourself. I'm lost in even identifying my potential. Where do I begin? Begin with the body. Or you might want to begin with somebody you know who likes you, and just accept that this person likes you, that this person appreciates you. That's a place to begin, of just actually knowing that others do see your potential, because often we might not see our potential, but others do. You know, sometimes we think, why on earth did that person ask me to do this? They asked you to do it because they saw your potential. And so in a way, it's somebody like a benefactor, somebody who, you know, who we know really appreciates us. And just kind of sit still in a chair and just allow yourself to be appreciated by that person who really values your worth. And if that's difficult, then go to the body and appreciate something simple of your body. If you are able to move, and that could be moving in a wheelchair, or it could be moving by walking, it could be moving by dancing, or moving on crutches, appreciate the potential of the body, that the body can move. It may move differently from one person to the next, and it can move. Appreciate the potential of the body, that it is breathing. Yeah. Okay, so we've come to that time where we separate. And I want to end with an aphorism. It's an aphorism that I created many years ago. There are never endings, only separations and new beginnings. And just know, in those new beginnings, there is potential. So thank you so much for joining me for today's conversation. Remember, you can meditate with Round Glass live every single day. Check us out at roundglass.com. Yay! And on our app. Okay, so a big hug, and remember, potential. Yeah, step in to your potential. Stop limiting yourself. Expand. Become bigger in the world. Take your space. I'll see you sometime soon. Goodbye.